had a real good bid or not. It is, we were happy to have the 3 bidders.
Okay, thank you.
So the 208,000 includes the modifications to the plant, or is it
No,
going to be
s-
another 20,000 on top of that?
Right, so if in your action to be considered, we have the 208.5 is the one action to municipal builders. The 20,868 is to total control, and they had submitted a bunch of quote items that we had included in your past packet. And I think we had a copy of that included in your packet again for their $20,000.
Right, and what I was concerned about is when I looked at the packet, your engineering estimate was like 180,000 plus
Sure.
the 20. So now we're going to be at 208 plus another 20.
Correct.
So they came in a little higher than your estimate.
Well, and our estimate was from the June 26th meeting, and I think as we, answered questions and we kind of got some additional information on what the, some of the, I think it was mostly in the backwash tanks, some of those different, what would it be, the little spigots that are being installed there. We understood that number that we had presented back in June seemed a little low, so we did revise our engineer's estimate as part of this work. There's also a meter that I think Public Works had talked about related to well number 3 that was initially not included in that previous estimate that was included in this updated estimate.
And the good news is, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, we would still be within our budget. And these are necessity items, but
Correct.
we would still be within our budget.
So including, Bobby, the
Yep.
208 and the 20-some,
Yep.
we still have bond money
Correct.
that covers that?
Yeah.
Is that the $73,000? Or is
Yeah.
it 73 minus the 20?
Yeah, it's lower than, that 73 was once again in the packet from the previous council meeting, and that would be less now with the higher costs on the 208.5. The 20,000 hasn't changed from.
Got it. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Quick question. When there is a lump sum in the bid, those normally aren't changeable. Mobilization is mobilization, lump sum is lump sum.
Sure.
What component in these, when we get to linear feet, when we get to each, when we get to cubic yards, what could cause this 208 to either require a change item to go up or cause a change item to go down? Because I'm assuming they're using your numbers of per each and cubic yard, and so if they need to bring in.
Right. So if there's, for some reason, if there ended up being on, say, 6-inch PVC water main, we have like 14 lineal feet. If they ended up installing 16 lineal feet, we would just pay by that unit price. So yeah, I would say in general, the unit price items can vary a little bit if.
This is probably a harder bid than, let's say, the actual drilling of the well, wouldn't you say? Because there was so many unknowns in drilling the well as far as depth and what you might get into, whereas this is all above ground and
Well, it's above and being like, 10 feet and, within the top 10 feet. Yeah, when you're drilling a well, there is a lot of unknowns that can happen when they start drilling down.
So are you confident that the 208 will stay somewhere around the 208?
Yeah, I think this one is, right, when you're drilling a well, you just never know what
Right.
that rock formation, and you can have some additional costs that you didn't anticipate. This we do anticipate pretty, that it should be at that 208, or, might be 1,000 more, it could be 1,000 less, but it's a lot less risky than a well.
That's what I figured, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of the odd thing is that, anytime there's construction, things can happen. I mean, some things are even weather dependent. If things happen, they gotta stay longer. I mean, there's so many variables that you don't know. All we can do is just provide and get the best information that we have, which Dan has accumulated, and go from there in terms of how we can bid that out.
Dan, has Stantec had any experience with municipal builders?
Yes, they have worked on past projects. There's a water treatment plant, I think up in Harris, Minnesota, that they worked on with us, and they do good work. They're a general contractor that knows how to coordinate subs and get them in a timely basis. So, yeah, we've had good experience with them.
Cool.
I am looking for a motion then to accept bid for well number 4 pump and connection from Municipal Builders.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
Second?
second by DeLuca. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. My apologies for going out of order and putting you on the spot there. We're going to go back to letter B.
Did-
And I think I threw you all. Thank you for just going with it. And review the plans for Parkview Road and Maple Ridge Drive.
And maybe before I do, thank you, Mayor, and I knew you would get back to that. I had so much faith in you. But there was that second item on the quotes for total control. I didn't know if that's an item you wanted to, or if,
Oh, should that be a separate motion for that 20 as well?
I think a second motion would be good, just to accept that. Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, looking for a second motion for the additional, 20,000 for Municipal Builders,
Total control.
for total control,
Yep.
excuse me.
So moved.
Moved by DeLuca,
Second.
second by Fay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we'll really move on to letter B, review plans for Parkview Road and Maple Ridge Drive.
thank you, Mayor and Council. I think the council, it was I think a great public gathering meeting where we met with the public on July 19th and got some feedback from them on the proposed improvements on Maple Ridge Drive and Parkview Road. I think in general, we explained the process, and there's feedback, especially on Maple Ridge Drive, where there's a property owner that pointed out maybe some additional curb that should be added. We did work with Public Works the next day. I looked at it that evening last Wednesday, and then also met with the property owner on site at 5795, and then Public Works looked at it the next day and said, yeah, they agreed that some additional curbs should be added at 5794 and 5795 to make those improvements to get drainage through the cul-de-sac. So we did update the costs that were presented at the meeting on July 19th to reflect that. We also did a number, I think it was a discussion after the meeting where someone had mentioned, well, what if you replace, because we're doing these spot repairs of the low areas, what if you replace all the curb and gutter in the cul-de-sac? So we did do an estimate on that, and those two numbers are in your packet. If we just added 5794 and 5795, we had an estimated cost of $34,300. If we did all the curb in the cul-de-sac, in between those patches that we show on our drawing, that would add around another $6,000 to the overall project. So we know that's something that you may want to consider in your discussion tonight. Also, one thing that we wanted to point out, we did include some typical drain basins. I know there's a few property owners that brought up at the meeting that, and various property owners had asked if the city can at least get quotes from a contractor to extend the drain tile up to their yard, especially because it's at a depth that, we're putting it at 6 feet. So if you try to extend that up 6 feet into the yard, not, the average, unless they worked in a graveyard or something where you were good at digging, it's not something the average property owner could do. So we were going to look at getting prices, but this was kind of some of those drain basins that could be put up kind of at in the property at a location where if for some reason there was some freezing going on, that a property owner could run a hose and just run it into that catch basin. And it is something that some cities have that as a standard detail. There's always like between your sump connection and your drain tile connection, you have to have a kind of an air gap. And so this is one way that some people do that with a drain basin. Let's see, anything else? I think, right, in general, Public Works, there was a kind of a lighter sketch drawing. One of the things they looked at is they did go a little further than Maple Ridge and went further to the east on Parkview, and that was this little drawing here. They did notice right in this curve on Parkview that there was some water sitting there. And they noticed one other spot. You know, we had fixing the curb and gutter right here at the last spot where we're doing the drain tile. They did find a little smaller spot here. And so I think the question is, do we want to monkey with those areas? I kind of concentrated on the two that were brought up at the public gathering right here at 5794 and 5795. But yeah, there's just a few other areas, and it's something that, you know, we'll get a price per lineal foot, and it's something that if the council or we get some good prices, maybe it's something the city considers adding that to the project. But right now, I don't have that included in our proposed quote package.
Is that curb or is that street repair?
That was curb repair. They had noticed some, water. So there's the rain on Wednesday, and I kind of concentrated on just right there by Maple Ridge in the cul-de-sac. But they had noticed further down on Parkview that there's those two spots, and they highlighted in their area. And I just, at this point in time, didn't include that because I knew there was a point where we decided, like, how far do you want to go, or do you just want to keep it to these two areas that we've been talking about at this time?
Would you say that's been caused by the water that happened because of the city, or is that just normal wear and tear?
Yeah, I think that's more normal wear and tear. I think, your situation with parts of this area is that you do get some movement and settlement. The stuff that was here, I think, was always drain tile. That little stretch at 1490, since they, discharge on the north side of their house and used to go to the park side and now is going to the street side, I'm not aware of that low spot being caused by any drain tile discharge, etc. So yeah, our goal would be if the council, after just some final discussion, we would send out quotes this week and then bring that information back to your next meeting in August.
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have questions, but I would like to make some comments so that they're on the record. And I appreciate all the work you put into this, Dan. This is enormous. It's taken on a life of its own. This started off as a public safety issue due to the freezing water over on Parkview. We're now 6 months into it. We started these conversations in February. This is the 9th time it's hit an agenda. This is the 3rd time we've requested solicitation of bids. In that 6 months, the probable estimated cost of Parkview has increased twofold, and Maple Ridge has increased by 50%. In the April workshop, I questioned how Maple Ridge made it onto the agenda, being they did not share the public safety issue that Parkview had. I expressed my desire to break them into 2 quotes, and we're doing that accordingly. To date, I'm still not sold Maple Ridge poses a safety issue. In addition, we have no assurance, unlike the residents on Parkview, that they won't discharge water into the street. Therefore, to me, it becomes a road reconstruction issue, not a sump discharge or public safety issue. And someone needs to explain to me why the reconstruction of Maple Ridge jumps ahead of other road construction and reconstruction projects and shouldn't be part of a CIP. And secondly, why shouldn't it be treated as any other road reconstruction and be part of a bonding process or procedure? I'm not against seeking proposals. I just need some answers to some questions before we commit $35 or $40 additional $1,000 on Maple Ridge.
Good questions.
No, I think that it's one of those things that we can gather answers to all those questions and get that back to City Council entirely. I know it's been a process where it was identified by Public Works that Maple Ridge Drive had some issues there that has been ongoing for numerous years. Part of the advantage of combining projects is obviously you can cut back on mobilization costs, different deals. Certainly, we're going to bid them separate as well. But ultimately, it comes down to, I mean, City Council. I think if you look at it from a pure safety standpoint, there's no doubt that Parkview Road poses a greater safety risk, just due to the nature of what happened this last winter. But certainly, all options are on the table, and that's up for City Council. All I can say is that staff has identified Maple Ridge Drive as an area that could use additional work as well to help provide, hopefully, the road to avoid major maintenance in the future, kind of prolong that. But there's really no wrong way to go about this. We're in the business of maintaining infrastructure, so I understand that all aspects of this. So
I did have a question. If hypothetically, if we were to delay Maple Ridge for a number of years, what kind of damage would that have? Are we talking in 5 years now it's going to be ruined, or is this like a 10, 15, 20-year type thing where it's going to really make damage?
Yeah, I know Maple Ridge was in the past kind of inspections was kind of listed as, it's one that's gotten seal coated because it was in the range. This last year when Public Works rated it, they moved it down to where a seal coat wouldn't be recommended. They recommended the city starts planning for reclamation or mill and overlay. So yeah, so it's hard to say. I mean, it's you know, in the next 5 years, I don't know if it'll fall into the reconstruction stage. We had it listed in 2022 to do that mill and overlay. But yeah, it was something that, at least my recollection, I know Public Works had brought it up last year as one area where there's just these settlements through the cul-de-sac and the water can't get to the catch basin, and they had it on the list. And so when the Parkview came up, it was something that staff brought up to the council back in, it sounds like it was back in February. So yeah, it's something from a city engineering standpoint, if you decided based on either the prices that came in or even prior to that you want to delay it, I would still encourage you to keep that in your projects to try to do as soon as possible, just so that we can keep it in that mill and overlay area, not have it keep deteriorating to reconstruct.
Well, and isn't it true, Dan, that a mill and overlay is not going to fix the curb and gutter issues that are involved on that road?
Correct, right. We
So
assume
they're two distinct issues.
Right, we assume some, there might be some spot repairs on curb and gutter, but this stretch has more curb and gutter that needs to be repaired than a typical mill and overlay, just because of some of those bigger settlements.
And John, in answer to one of the questions you posed is, why don't we bond for this? In any capital, we have capital funds that you can choose to not bond. These little ones, as we were talking in the workshop tonight, seal coating and mill and overlay, those become routine street maintenance issues. And as we chatted in the workshop, we've got a pretty decent plan right now over how to extend the life of these roads. We are paying the ultimate price right now for years' worth of councils doing nothing on roads. And as we saw, some $18 million worth of roads over the next 30 years, scares us. So do we start here and try to begin working on the ones we can? We've encouraged Bobby to look at even doing some seal coating of various roads even as early as this fall, if we can still make schedules, and he's going to try to do that. I just want to start making some progress on the roads. I've been on council now coming up on 4 years, and we've done a couple good reconstruction projects, but we're not really hitting the maintenance that needs to be done to prolong. I don't want to see $5 million road projects come in the next 20 years.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree, and I also agree that, we want to work combine projects when we can to use our resources. One question I received from a resident, they want to know why we would pay to redo Maple Ridge Road and they had to pay to have their road redone. So what would our answer be to residents on that?
Yeah, so I know you're not like replacing, the whole street and the sewer and water, so it's a little bit different, and I
Just 'cause
know.
we're not doing infrastructure?
Right, and,
Okay.
and the city, when they did some of the recent mill and overlay, so you had Howard Avenue as a mill and overlay, and that one, you chose at that time that you weren't gonna be assessing mill and overlay type projects, so it is in that category that, seal coating, mill and overlay, you aren't assessing, and I think if there's other areas of town where a road needs to be milled and overlaid at a certain point in time or seal coated, the city will keep doing that with this capital improvement plan that you've started.
Yeah, general maintenance of the infrastructure versus a full reconstruction with the utility infrastructure below and the entire rebuilding of the road might be the answer towards the public when explaining when we assess, when we don't assess.
And I think that's important to clear up, and I wanted to hear that, the viewing audience to hear that, and all of us to hear that as well. Thank you.
I have one more
Yep,
question.
Councilman.
At the information meeting, we had several residents on Maple Ridge say that sump pump output was the biggest problem. Have we talked to them about tying in, like Parkview,
Well,
to see if they're open to it?
yeah, I believe there is a tie-in area for some of the homes along Maple Ridge Drive there where that infrastructure's in place. The difference there between Parkview is that Parkview, those homes they don't have that infrastructure at all. So
is that
the
Maple-
option
They've
to,
chosen not to on Maple Ridge?
some residents have chosen not to,
Okay.
for a variety of reasons.
You
So-
also had I'm sorry.
Go ahead. That's my struggle with Maple Ridge, because if we're gonna invest the dollars to redo this, and then we're gonna have hoses pouring onto the street again, we're gonna have to see the same situation with the curb being pushed up at the end. Like right now, if you drive in, you can see it's heaved up. So how can we address that? What are our options?
Well, our first thing that we've been doing is just notifying everyone, letting them know that an illegal sump pump discharge is discharging with your sump pump hose anywhere inside 5 feet of the gutter or the curb. So by doing that, the water erosion that you're pumping out into the street, that is considered an illegal discharge under city ordinance. So the first thing is simple code enforcement, letting everyone know, and it's not particular just to Maple Ridge Drive. This is a citywide issue here, that you need to be at least 5 feet away from the curb when you discharge from your sump pump hose, so we don't erode the curb line and have this issue happening everywhere. That's the first thing. Obviously, we always encourage to tie into drain tile if you have that option. That helps. I mean, that's a big part of it. The reality is that it's not always just the cheapest thing to do. There are some dollars that would need to be put in there, and it's a little bit more expensive than buying just a sump pump hose or a sump pump. But that's what we can do to try and prevent this from happening in the future. I mean, that's the best thing we can do.
But
Mayor-
that's my
oh.
concern, because what I heard you say was it's a simple code enforcement, and it's my understanding that staff has already been sending out letters,
Mhm.
not just on Maple Ridge, but throughout the city and Maple Plain, stating the code. So I guess I don't foresee the problem going away if we've already done what you're telling me our options are. So that's my struggle.
We identified it on Parkview, and it went from a traditional depth drain tile to a 6-foot drain tile because we identified that, yes, you can discharge at 5 feet from the curb, but in the middle of January, it's gonna go right over the curb and we're gonna be right where we were. It was imperative that we do the drain tile, and it got more expensive because now we're 12 feet wide and 6 feet deep with standoffs and things of that nature. So to spend $40,000 or $50,000 on Parkview without some type of assurance that we're addressing and working with the homeowners, somehow it just becomes capital program somewhere on down the line, not to be tied in with the good work we're doing on Parkview. That's my concern.
I think you meant Maple Ridge. I think you reversed.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're doing good work on Parkview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify.
I am not, I have no assurance that
On
the
Maple
money
Ridge.
spent on Maple Ridge
Okay.
is going to be good money spent at this point.
And another question, you really, obviously Maple Ridge needs to be addressed at some point, but when we look at the prioritization of the projects that are in the city, this is much lower on the list compared to, say, the east side of town, northeast side of town, or Main Street, so on and so forth. I just wanna get like a real world cost savings here of combining these projects, and the only cost savings we have is mobilization, correct? If we put these projects together?
Yeah, well, right, mobilization, sometimes I know we're gonna be bidding them each separate and telling a contractor the city may choose one or may choose both. Sometimes if you're coming in there and you're gonna be doing more work, similar like a project when you talked about our reconstruction, making it a bigger project than a smaller. I mean, usually, sometimes your unit prices will get less on some of the bid items too, if you have a bigger one. Now, this is a small project no matter what, so I don't know if we'll see that. And especially when they know that the city might choose one or the other, but not both. So
Okay.
you probably won't see it in the unit prices. They'll probably be the same on both, but the mobilization rate is a savings.
Okay, and I might be looking at this wrong. I'm not skilled in this area. I'm not an
Sure.
engineer like yourself, but I see $1,500 for mobilization for each of the projects. So am I to assume if we did only one, that mobilization might go up to 3,000, or is it really, or it could just go down if we combine them? What's the?
Well, if you bid them as one combined project, you might see a savings, but
Okay.
because we're bidding them as separate, I mean, they're gonna put some dollar amount here, and they don't know for sure if you're gonna pick
Okay.
part B, say like Maple Ridge, so, yeah, and some of them may just decide that they're local, and they might say, well, we don't have hardly any mobilization, we're gonna be
Okay.
right here, and so it's just hard, we're estimating prices.
Yeah,
and-
I get that. So
yeah.
I'm just trying to think, at most, what we'd be saving here is $3,000, and it's likely we're probably saving 1,000 to 2,000 if we combine these projects. If just ballpark numbers, is that fair to assume that?
Yeah, I'd say, more of that lower number
Like
of what you
1,000 is
said,
what we'd
yeah,
be saving.
yeah.
So the incentive isn't necessarily there for savings. I think what I'm trying to get here is to combine these and to do Maple Ridge, we have to decide, is the priority there to spend this money? And, we had that conversation before. If we put this off, are we kicking the can down the road for something that needs to happen? Or are we able to use those funds towards something at a greater priority? And that's the question I have with this, in addition to the question you guys raised, is there an assurance that we're doing this with that payoff that's there? So is that fair that's kind of where I'm at right now, those two questions is what I'm asking with this. But-
You're looking to a motion to seek bids?
Yeah.
I personally don't see a
Quotes.
reason why we
Quotes.
can't seek
No,
the bids.
it's the
We
bids,
can
yeah.
have a formal discussion when we
Yeah.
look at bids to see
Yeah.
what we want to do.
Yeah, some of
I'm
this
not trying to
conversation is-
kill the project. I just wanted to make a conscientious effort to tell you where I sit as a council member, that I'm not quite sold on Maple Ridge right now.
Yeah. We're putting the cart before the horse a bit. We're preemptive, but
It's
I
good
think
conversation.
we're identifying maybe some of the questions that we're trying to vocalize. But, yeah.
It brings forward some questions, it gives our engineers some direction. So with that, we are looking for a motion to go out and get bids for Parkview Road and Maple Ridge Road, Drive, as two separate projects. So looking for that motion.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
Second.
second by Broda. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Next on the agenda is to discuss weekend donation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I wanted to put this on the agenda because it's something that I received in the mail, and it's from WECAN, which is the Western Communities Action Network, and they are a nonprofit organization located in Mound, and they provide a number of services to surrounding communities, including our own. That would include food programs, family support, employment opportunities, emergency assistance, helping families out and individuals that are across tough times right now. They seek and solicit some funds from cities all over the area. I know that when I was in Delano, they did as well. How we would pay for that is we would take that out of our community. We have a community donations fund in our budget that has a budget of about $5,500 in it. And last year we spent just a few dollars over $5,000 out of that fund. And so as a result, given the fact that Western Communities Action does serve the community, staff has a recommendation of making a donation of $500, but certainly that is up for City Council discussion. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the topic about WECAN or any of the functions they provide, and help out there.
So it's assumed that we'd be making the same donations in 2016. Is that kind of where you came up with $500?
No. We in the past have not made a donation to WECAN that I know of.
I'm sorry, I meant of the to the senior center and to the community
Yep,
education.
and there is some slight increases there, but very minimal. And it would still give us around that $500 total.
Okay. And we haven't made those donations
Nope,
yet.
none of those donations have
but
been made yet.
They're assumed that they would happen
We
based on
did make the
previous-
Delano one, didn't we?
Not yet, I don't believe. It should be coming up. Not that I saw.
Madam Mayor, I have difficulty with this, and let me explain why. I think the community organization fund that we have, Delano is essentially our senior center. We don't have a senior center in Maple Plain. And when we start going down the slippery slope of donating to nonprofit organizations, essentially what we're doing is we're taking the tax dollar from John's pocket and we're gonna give it to some organization. And I don't know where at some point you go, give it to this one, but I won't give it to this one. There are probably, right, wrong, good, or bad, a dozen or 24 nonprofit organizations that do good work in the community, whether it be ICOP, this one, name them. There's 100 of them that you could probably come up with. And I don't think as a council, we're in the business of just transferring tax dollars to charitable organizations, which is what this feels like to me. And I can differentiate the support of a particular program or a sponsorship of something. We sponsor something with the community ed department, or we're helping sponsor the community garden or the Delano Area Senior Center because they become our senior center. I just think we're on a real slippery slope when we start picking and choosing the charitable organizations that we give to.
I was fortunate enough to attend a prayer breakfast at WECAN a couple of months ago. I knew nothing about them whatsoever until I sat through that 2 hours, and maybe the mayor can tell us, there what was it, if I remember correctly, 13 communities that they support?
In full transparency, I work for Western Community Actions Network. I work there part-time. I'm the Career Initiatives Counselor. I have been on staff there for a year, or it will be a year in August. So yes, there are 13 cities that WECAN serves. To Councilmember DeLuca's point, it is a social service agency, so IOCP does not service Maple Plain area. WECAN is the only social service agency that services our residents. So just to clarify that.
Yeah. And I have some experience interacting with WeCan as well through different things I'm involved in. And yeah, it's a resource for people in need of, for food, for shelter, for you name it. So it is, I believe, a direct benefit to our residents, just like the senior center could be. So I think it's along the same thought process in my mind, so.
So when the next nonprofit comes in and wants dollars, then do we say, well, we've established a precedence here, here's $500, or here's a couple hundred?
And
That's the slippery slope I don't want to go down.
Yeah, I understand that.
And I think it's easier to just say no than to start going down that slippery slope, because we can't stop once we start down that.
Are you, Councilmember DeLuca, are you saying that we shouldn't have a $5,500 line item in our budget to give to social service agencies?
That line item is not necessarily intended for social service agencies. It's for programmatic support, as I understood, when we're trying to partner in a community effort. That's different than, here's our good work that we do, help contribute to the general pot, which is what this one feels like to me.
So for the Delano and community ed, are those all specified to individual programs, or is it a general donation to the organization?
I'm not, I know that there's a number of programs that are provided by both the organizations.
But we're not
as-
saying like $4,000 to, Meals on Wheels for seniors.
No, it's for the general program in general, in terms of, the money goes to the Delano Senior Center and all the programs that they offer there, and to serve our residents there. In terms of community ed, I'd have to look into more on that, specifically to that, but,
Yeah, that one puzzled me.
I have always struggled with the community ed, because I feel like we give as our taxes, and I feel like as a city, we support that program we offer. They run their programs at Rainbow Park, and, as a service, we provide the garbage, the electricity, we keep the parks up to date, mowed.
What I hope isn't communicated is that we want to silo ourselves from the initiatives in the communities around us. Community education being one of them. And I understand the principle of it. I also look at the reality of it. It's at $500, $600. And in a sense, it's more of a gesture than us funding their programs. Because what's $600 to us was $600 to them, a drop in the bucket. And so, to me, it's more about what's being communicated about our support to work and collaborate than the principle of it. That's where I stand on it.
I'd rather support our agencies through helping them in our newsletter, helping them with our processes. I have I just cannot get by the theory that I'm taking a tax dollar from my neighbor's pocket and transferring it directly to a nonprofit organization. Can't go there.
So I guess I'm still failing to understand. Are you saying that we cancel the whole line item for Delano?
Well, that will be a discussion at budget time, won't it?
Right, yeah, but is that kind of the philosophy you're going with?
Well, but I can differentiate, Dominic, between our Delano community partners and this particular nonprofit organization that serves our communities. I just don't know what we're going to say to the next one that comes along. Do we say, oh, it's because you didn't have experience with them, or Julie didn't have a staff relationship, or you didn't go to a prayer breakfast with them?
Yeah, and I guess my thought is anyone can make an argument in the opposite direction of your understanding on that too, and that's where you kind of get into an all or nothing kind of situation where, if we can't give to one, then we should probably give to none. But the point being, we do have this money budgeted for this year, as approved in the 2017 budget. We have it.
correct.
We could give some here, or we could give none to anyone in 2017, because nothing's been given, right?
To my knowledge, correct, yes.
So, that's where we are.
I hear what Councilmember DeLuca is saying, and I just, in my mind, I just want to clarify, there's a difference between a social service agency, like a senior center, and a nonprofit, like the Boy Scouts or a church or a different group coming forward.
And theoretically, I should be siding with Councilmember DeLuca, because there's no one tighter on a budget than me, but I see the inherent beauty of giving a small amount of money to keep this services agency afloat, because it would be one thing if we could say, oh, 5819 Three Oaks Avenue used it, as did this person and this person, but we don't talk about them because they're in need of a meal or some social counseling or medical help or psychological help or whatever, and it's but I understand.
If you do
Dominic.
read the letter from the director, it sounds like she has offered to come out, and then you could ask for numbers to be broken down. Clients served in Maple Plain. There'd be no names or
Without being
addresses.
specific,
It would
just
just be
saying in
numbers.
2016 we
26
served
people got
29
Meals on
people or
Wheels,
something like
I'm
that.
totally making that number up, so,
Right.
but
Are we looking for direction?
I'm not
Like,
making a motion. 'cause
Well, is it
Yeah.
philosophical? We're looking for a motion to actually donate this, or?
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that city council staff would be looking for a motion, but certainly we move at the pace and the discretion of the city council. So if the city council would like to speak about this in more of a philosophical context at budget time, that's open as well. If city council would like to act and take action tonight, that's certainly welcomed as well too. It's up to city council at this point how they would like to act on this topic.
Can I ask Councilmember DeLuca to lead the rest of the conversation as acting mayor? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate, and make sure that it's just on the record that Mayor Moskowski will not be partaking in any direction or decision made on this topic.
Is there any direction the council would like?
It's $500. I'm okay with putting this into bed for 2017. So I would make a motion that we make the donation and for 2017.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second?
There's a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
I'm abstaining.
And one abstention. Motion carries.
Thank you, Councilmember DeLuca. Moving on in our agenda to letter E, Resolution 17-0724-01, supporting state capitol grand opening.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This resolution that you have before you is a resolution in support of the funds that have been spent by the state of Minnesota in upgrading our state capitol. So just a few facts on that. The state of Minnesota invested $310 million into the renovation of the state capitol, and there's a grand opening with some of those funds that have been spent on August 11th, 12th, and 13th of 2017 this year. And so the League of Minnesota Cities is encouraging all cities to pass a resolution in support of the newly renovated capitol. This is strictly up to City Council. I mean, if it's something that you do not, if Council does not agree with the upgrade or the renovations, you certainly do not have to pass the resolution. On another note, on August 11th, there is a March of the Mayors event happening at 8:30 in the morning there. I also included into this packet kind of a flyer of the different events that are occurring on August 11th, 12th, and 13th down at the state capitol for the celebration. And with that, we do have a resolution that is before City Council tonight to act on whether to support the renovation dollars that were spent here or not. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this resolution.
Any questions regarding the resolution?
We're basically just publicizing the grand opening, essentially.
Yeah.
In layman's terms, yes, that
In
is
a very
essentially,
formal-
in a very formal manner,
Did
we.
this show up to you in a Word document, or did you actually spend staff time to
No.
draft the
Oh, no,
whereas,
no,
whereas,
no. I'll
whereas?
give you guys a little insight here for the public, too. When the League of Minnesota Cities sends out resolutions, staff never really writes those resolutions. The only thing I do is I go in here and just make sure I add in City of Maple Plain, so on. So they draft it. So it's not something that staff spends time on putting together. But certainly, we support the League of Minnesota Cities as a city entirely. They provide a lot of services our way, and this is one of the things that they're reaching out and asking for our support. So just a little background there.
Madam Mayor, while I don't personally think that spending a third of $1 billion was necessary for the state capitol, the fact of the matter is our elected officials, right, wrong, good, or bad, thought it was. Therefore, it is what it is, and it's going to be there, and there's going to be a grand opening. We might as well celebrate that, and I'm hoping the mayor would join in the mayor walk that day if she's available. Therefore, I'd move that we approve Resolution 170724-01.
Councilmember Fay seconds that. Beautifully done.
Thank you.
And for discussion, Mayor Moskowski is planning to attend along with many of the other mayors from the Regional Council of Mayors. So, any other discussion? And with this, we'll have a roll call vote because it's resolution.
Councilmember Cahill.
Aye.
Councilmember Fay.
Aye.
Councilmember DeLuca.
Aye.
Councilmember Broda.
Aye.
Mayor Moskowski.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right.
Through
Thank
a
you.
vote.
All right. No visitors to be heard. Council reports and other business. Councilmember Cahill, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Let's see, I attended the Fire Commission meeting, along with Commissioner Broden, and I'll let him go into detail on that one. And then I also attended the Suburban Rate Authority meeting. Wasn't too much new. They continue to talk about the small cell legislation, but they also mentioned CenterPoint is looking to raise rates in August, but they will negotiate on our behalf to try and keep those low. And then also Excel is looking to pilot smart meters, which could mean you could pay less during off hours, for example, doing laundry at 2 a.m. So,
All right.
Right up
Thank you.
your alley.
Thank you for that update, Councilmember Cahill. Councilmember Fay.
A couple of quick things. Thursday afternoon, I will be joining Bob Thunheim and other Rotarians on Lake Minnetonka for a little boat cruise. It is available for all of us to attend. If you RSVP, of course, we'd have to post it if we have anything more than 2 council members there. A great watershed meeting last Thursday. I mentioned this in the workshop earlier. Really got a chance after the meeting to sit down and talk to Kirsten Barta, rural conservationist through Hennepin County. She is, I think I mentioned, she is a bulldog. She is a hard worker, and she is willing to help any homeowner in town on water issues. I know this is a hot topic right now, but it is her specialty. She is a biology, and she's got her doctorate, and she's forgotten more about it than I'll ever know. And so it's what she does. So if a homeowner is having discharge issues, we can put the homeowner in contact with Bobby. I will get you her card. We can get Bobby to get the homeowner in touch with her. She'll come out, she'll work with them and give them options. And I don't think there's any Hennepin County grant dollars there or monies there, but her labor, her assessment would be, for the most part, free as a service of Hennepin County. So I'll get you her business card. She's great.
Thank you, Councilmember Fay. Councilmember DeLuca.
The HR committee met last week. We are finalizing the fire commission. There's one more piece of work, and that is the selection of officers and the chief. The fire staff is being engaged in those discussions. In fact, I think tonight
Right
they're
now.
actually engaged
Right now.
in that. And that will be coming back to the HR committee and then coming back to council. That would then put a wrap on the activities. That's been about a 4-year project. And my compliments to Bobby for all of the hard work you and John did on that. And Mayor, same to you.
Thank you.
All right, is that it? Councilmember Broda?
Well, as was mentioned, we were at the fire commission meeting, and big topic of discussion was next year's budget. The budget is actually increased a bit, and part of that, the overall budget went from $391,000 to $418,000. Part of that is because of an accounting error, you could say, where a line item was not entered for the fire relief fund. So basically, the fire budget had been shorted about $18,000 a year over the last several years. So that's been corrected. But you'll notice that the Maple Plain portion has actually gone down about $5,000 despite the raise in overall budget. And the reason is the JPA agreement, the formula that was used for the proportions of cost has the home value, I guess you could say. And so we didn't do that since 2013. We just basically been doing like 46, 47% each. And now those have changed to about 42 and 52%, 52 going to independents, 42 going to us. So that's where we're at. The fire commission representatives from independents agreed. That's how it's written. That's how we should do it. So we're at that for this year. So that's how we got to a higher overall budget, but a smaller Maple Plain budget, and we'll be approving that as a council with their overall budget. We also have a Maple Plain Days event coming up on August 1st. We're partnering with Fire End Police for the neighborhood night out, and we'll have free meal and a movie afterwards, Moana. Haven't seen it yet, but that'll be at 8:30 that night, and we will spray for mosquitoes this time.
Thank you. I was able to attend the Regional Council of Mayors. We spent our entire meeting talking about water. Was also able to attend along with our administrator and our chief of police the Highway 12 Safety Coalition meeting, continuing to talk about improvements and timing, and that commission also works, and we're looking at projects further west that don't particularly pertain to us at this time. I would also just like to thank the entire council for the involvement in the comp plan. Good work, good feedback, looking forward to that process, and also for the involvement in our administrators' one-year review. It's been a busy month, and I appreciate the energy and time and the heart and passion that everyone has put forward, and continuing to represent our neighbors well. And softball.
And softball.
All right. Any other business? Hearing no other business, looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Moved by DeLuca.
A second.
Second by Rhoda. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned, 8:53.